I think that there was another thought that I hadn't really considered until now when placing Joe Biden in as puppet president. And that thought is that because of his senility, maybe he'd only last 4 years. That's fine. That's fine. I think they accepted that early on. He's only going to be president for 4 years. But what that means is that we've got a disposable president here. The way the Democrat operators in Washington, D.C., the way that they perceive Joe Biden is he is a disposable vessel upon which we can place all the blame for any kind of mistake that Democrats make. Anything that makes Democrats look bad, that can all be put on the shoulders of Joe Biden. What I think that the left believed was that between 2020 and 2024, they could get a lot of the stuff they want done. They could push all of these massive programs, and any kind of anger or resentment or frustration that the American people had about all of this craziness, that could all be placed on the shoulders of Joe Biden. Joe Biden will be this disposable vessel that collects all that junk, and then our hands are clean. So Nancy Pelosi doesn't get blamed for anything. None of the other potential candidates get blamed for anything. Kamala Harris doesn't get blamed for anything. The FBI doesn't get blamed for anything. Everything gets put onto Joe Biden. Joe Biden, he gets put on the pyre. He's their scapegoat. Now, I don't think they were expecting something as disastrous as Afghanistan to occur. Why has the media turned on Joe Biden?
Mr. Reagan.
So the other day, Tucker Carlson observed something pretty fascinating with the media. They had all seemed to turn against Joe Biden.
It is just an absolute mess. And we heard President Biden say yesterday in his comments to ABC News that this is not a failure. And I think a lot of people outside that airport, particularly those taking the kinds of extreme actions we're just talking about, would like to know, if this isn't failure, what does failure look like exactly?
The rapid fall of Afghanistan stunning the Biden administration and this nation, quite frankly. And many of the promises, predictions, and the words of the president and his White House are coming back to haunt them.
What is going on here? These are literally the people who got Joe Biden elected president. He would not be president without these people. And now, just 7 months into his administration, they are telling you that he has failed personally. It does not make sense.
This is really a fascinating turn of events and seems rather bewildering at first glance. However, if you think about it just a little bit, it actually makes total sense. As Tucker pointed out, the media doesn't really think for themselves. These people are not sitting there thinking, what do I think about politics? How do I express this to the American people in the most honest, objective way possible? That was the media in maybe like the 1950s, maybe the 1980s. It certainly is not the media today. What is the media today? The media today is simply a mouthpiece for the Democrat Party. They are spokespersons for the FBI. They essentially tell you what government officials and people in the DNC tell them to tell you. They don't have an original thought in any of their brains. They just take instructions and they reiterate what they're told. That's why you get basically every single Democrat journalist expressing the same ideas all at the same time. And right now, they've all switched from saying Biden is the greatest thing in the world to now saying, what a disaster. Biden is the worst president since Jimmy Carter. Why would they do that? Why would they switch so suddenly? What's the plan? What is this tactic? Where are they going with this? Well, I think I have the answer. I've thought this through, and I think I know what their strategy is, what their tactic is. And I think that this has been in the works for actually quite a long time. And I think they've made a massive tactical error. But let's get into all of that in one moment. First, of course, I have to sell you something. Studies show that the adult body produces 10% less collagen every decade. If you're over 40, like I am, believe it or not, this should concern you. Collagen is the glue that holds our bodies together. If you're seeing more defined wrinkles or you're feeling lethargic, well, this may not have anything to do with your diet or your sleep schedule, or your work routine, or even whether you smoke or drink. It may just be a reduction in your body's natural collagen production. And this is why I highly recommend Ageless Multi-Collagen from BioTrust. Now, I have joint issues, and it's important that I supplement with collagen. And this multi-collagen, this is top shelf stuff. So every morning I scoop a bit of this into my coffee along with my Keto Elevate, and I am good to go. Quick and easy. Everyone over 40 should be taking this stuff. To get some, you're going to need to go to healthwithreagan.com. I've also got a link in the description below that you can click on, and you're going to get 51% off your first bag plus a 60-day money-back guarantee. So again, healthwithreagan.com, or click on the link in the description below. All right, so why is this happening? Why has the left-wing media all gone from being Joe Biden is the greatest thing in the world to Joe Biden is a disaster, he's the next Jimmy Carter? Well, I think it has to do with the Democrats' long-term plans, and Democrats are not good at long-term strategy. So what's the long-term strategy with this whole Biden situation, and why did they turn against Joe Biden here? I think to answer this, we have to go back to when the DNC or whomever it was decided, possibly the FBI, decided that Joe Biden was going to be president, right? Because at some point, someone or a group of people, who are involved in what we would label the deep state, somebody or some of these people at some point definitely decided Joe Biden's our guy. Joe Biden's the guy that we're going to become president. Now, why did they decide that? Well, I think it's pretty well established. Everybody recognizes that Joe Biden is essentially a puppet. I think at one point when Joe Biden was signing all of these executive orders when he was first elected, I think he said out loud, "I don't even know what I'm signing here." Anyway, so yes, so Joe Biden, we all know that he's a puppet. We all know that he's manipulated by whomever it is that's running things behind the scenes. I think probably Barack Obama has a lot of control, but then also probably Nancy Pelosi, the FBI, a lot of these players, Wall Street, and the military-industrial complex. The withdrawal from Afghanistan was something I think that was decided upon after some degree of infighting within the deep state, because a massive part of the deep state is the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex has a massive influence on the federal government. What is the military-industrial complex? It's just basically companies that provide services to the military, provide products to the military, and are benefited if the United States is occupying foreign nations. If we have the military occupying foreign nations, the military-industrial complex benefits. They benefit from that. And so it's in the best interest of these companies to keep the U.S. military engaged in these foreign occupations. And so pulling out of Afghanistan, I'm not sure that everybody was on board, right? I think there was probably a lot of people who wanted to stay in Afghanistan, keep the money flowing. And so I think that not everybody in Washington, D.C. is happy that we pulled out of Afghanistan. And look, I think that some of them wanted this whole thing to be a disaster, wanted the whole thing to crumble, because if the entire withdrawal from Afghanistan is a disaster, then the next time we have to withdraw from a foreign nation, people might think twice about it. They might say, well, we don't want another Afghanistan, so we better stay there and occupy this country. So I think that there was a benefit to some of these players to make sure that our withdrawal was a disaster. But so here's the thing about Biden being elected president. Obviously, we know that different people wanted somebody in office that was a puppet that they could manipulate, that would do anything they say. Biden is perfect for this because he's compromised with all the criminal stuff, especially with the Hunter Biden stuff. But also, he's so old and so senile and so incompetent that he would have to rely on other people to tell him what to say, to tell him what to do, to present things to him to sign. There was just no way Biden was going to be able to be president. He didn't have the capacity to do so. I reported the other day that Joe Biden actually went to bed early. He went to bed early on the same day that Afghanistan was essentially falling apart, when we got all that footage of Afghani citizens hanging on to the airplanes flying out of Afghanistan and falling from thousands of feet in the air to their death because they were clinging to these planes trying to get out of Afghanistan. We were getting reports that American citizens had been left behind, that all these billions of dollars in military equipment were being left behind, and they were getting into the hands of the Taliban. This whole thing was just this massive disaster. On that same day, he went to bed early, right? Obviously, this is an indication of a completely incompetent commander-in-chief. I mean, it's somebody who cannot function as a military commander. So you got a guy who really can't function as president. You've got a guy who's compromised so that he can essentially be manipulated by the deep state. But I think that there was another thought that I hadn't really considered until now when placing Joe Biden in as puppet president. And that thought is that, okay, maybe he'd only last, because of his senility, maybe he'd only last 4 years, okay? That's fine. That's fine. I think they accepted that early on. He's only going to be president for 4 years. But what that means is that we've got a disposable president here in terms of the way the Democrats see him. The way the Democrat operators in Washington, D.C., the way that they perceive Joe Biden is he is a disposable vessel upon which we can place all the blame for any kind of mistake that Democrats make. Anything that makes Democrats look bad, that can all be put on the shoulders of Joe Biden. Now, I don't think they were expecting something as disastrous as Afghanistan to occur. What I think that the left believed was that there would be a series of problems that beset any kind of presidency, and that what they were looking forward to was 2024, in which they could have a better candidate run for office. They could get this candidate into office, and between 2020 and 2024, they could get a lot of the stuff they want done. They could push all of these massive programs, and any kind of anger or resentment or frustration that the American people had about all of this craziness, that could all be placed on the shoulders of Joe Biden. So Joe Biden was the dumpster within which the Democrats put all of their dirty laundry, all of the anger and resentment that the American people might have had for them. Generally, it was all put on Joe Biden. So they thought, well, we'll just concentrate all the negative feelings the American people have about Democrats. We can just focus that all on Joe Biden. Joe Biden will be this disposable vessel that collects all that junk, and then our hands are clean. We are pure as the driven snow. There is no dirt clings to us because it's all on Joe Biden, right? So Nancy Pelosi doesn't get blamed for anything. None of the other potential candidates get blamed for anything. Kamala Harris doesn't get blamed for anything. The FBI doesn't get blamed for anything. Everything gets put onto Joe Biden. Joe Biden is their sacrificial lamb, right? He gets put on the pyre. He's their scapegoat. And now this was a very clever strategy if things had gone fairly smoothly for Joe Biden. If Joe Biden had been somewhat of an effective president, but he had the weight of all these like radical agenda things, on him, the ire of the American people were on him, but he was essentially taking all of the negativity away from the other Democrats slowly over time, over the course of 4 years. That would have been fine. That would have been fine. Everybody could have hated Joe Biden, and then really there would have been a clear runway for the next Democrat candidate to try to become president. But I think Afghanistan is a bit of a wrench in their plan, because the Afghanistan debacle triggered the left into this sort of default plan that they'd already conceived of, which was any kind of tragedy, any kind of disaster, any kind of bad press that we get, we're going to put it all on Joe Biden. I think this was the plan for a long time. So when the media started saying, oh, this is all on Joe Biden, I mean, that's just wrong, right? It's on General Milley, Lloyd Austin, Nancy Pelosi. It's on all of these people who have been in office for a long time, or who have been in a position of authority for a long time, running the government. It's on all these people that control the deep state. It's on all these people, really. But they're all essentially deflecting blame to Joe Biden. The only one who didn't is Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi actually defended Joe Biden on her local news station in San Francisco.
Let's start with what's on everyone's minds right now, the situation in Afghanistan, and certainly after witnessing the confusion and the chaos. The big question right now, should the Biden administration have had a stronger U.S. military presence for the transition?
Well, first, may I just say that I commend the president for the action that he took. It was strong, it was decisive, and it was the right thing to do.
The U.S. withdrawal left tens of billions of dollars worth of U.S. military equipment in the hands of the Taliban. There were helicopters, guns, ammunition. How much has that raised the threat of future terrorist attacks, this well-armed Taliban?
This is what happens when you withdraw. Some equipment is left there. It was thought that would be used. it was hoped that it would be used by the Afghan military.
She said, oh, that's fine. When you withdraw from any kind of occupation, you always leave billions of dollars of equipment. You always leave a bunch of stuff behind, and the enemy gets it. That's just what happens when you withdraw from a foreign occupation. Come on. Come on, man. Yeah, I mean, come on. Nancy Pelosi, that was an error. Okay, the reason that was an error, I think this is an indication that whatever factions are fighting in D.C., in the deep state, Nancy Pelosi's faction was not let in on this plan of, we're going to just put all of our dirty laundry on Joe Biden. What's happening in Afghanistan, we're just going to put it on Joe Biden, and the rest of us will just wash our hands of it. She was not privy to this, right? That's why she defended Joe Biden. If she had known that this was the plan, she would have said in that interview, yeah, Joe Biden maybe made some mistakes here. It could have gone better, something like that. Joe Biden, it's all on him. But she did not say that. She said, no, this is perfect. Joe Biden's amazing. Joe Biden's awesome. So that indicates to me that Nancy Pelosi doesn't have as much power anymore in D.C. as I thought she did. I thought Nancy Pelosi was maybe one of the controlling entities there. So I think maybe whoever's making the decisions and producing the press releases and instructing the media on what to say, the Democrat media, they may be going against Nancy Pelosi in some way, because this definitely made Nancy Pelosi look bad. She's not going along with what everybody else is saying. So she's not on that team. She's not in that faction, whatever that is. She's not aligned with them. But here's the thing. I think Nancy Pelosi was right to defend Joe Biden. And the reason is because if Joe Biden stays in office for 4 years, which I don't think is necessarily going to happen, but it's a possibility, then to put this much negativity, this much garbage, crap, dirty laundry, piling all of this Afghanistan disaster, piling all of this onto Joe Biden this early on in his presidency, 8 months in, that's a lot. That's a lot of negativity to put on the shoulders of Joe Biden. I mean, you are reducing the confidence of the American people in this one man severely within a very short amount of time and very early on in his presidency. Now, to use Joe Biden as this kind of this disposable bin to throw all their garbage in and then toss him away at the end of 4 years and then say, we're all clean, none of us are dirty. That only works if the bin doesn't become full until the end of his presidency, right? That only works if for most of his presidency, people are like kind of okay with him. And then it's only until the very end that people are like, okay, this guy's horrible. If from the very beginning, people realize Joe Biden is useless and this was a huge mistake, he's going to remain in office for like maybe a year or 2 years or 3 years. But within that time, and this is going to increase as time goes by. So the longer he's in office, the worse it's going to get for them. They are going to get the sort of reflected toxicity of his presidency. So like, how people say, that people who are friends with celebrities or people who are like the sycophants of a celebrity in their posse or whatever, in their entourage, right? These people bask in the reflected glory of this person's celebrity. Well, in the same way as some bask in reflected glory, I think some people are bombarded by the toxic radiation of people who are not so much famous, but infamous, right? So we have this situation where people are going to start hating Joe Biden. And not just people on the right, people on the left are going to think that Biden is incompetent, he's useless, he's poisonous. But see, the thing is, Biden is the head of the whole Democrat Party. And so every Democrat is connected to Joe Biden in some way because he's the head of the Democrat Party. So every single person who's connected to Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, at this point, the FBI is, I think, pretty clearly connected to the Democrat Party. Chuck Schumer, Biden's entire administration, General Milley, General Lloyd Austin, basically every Democrat or every deep state operative that is connected to Joe Biden will over time become more and more toxic by their relative association with Joe Biden. They will become irradiated by the toxicity of Joe Biden's radioactive glow, right? Joe Biden isn't Joe Biden is not radiating sort of this glorious positivity like Donald Trump did, because Donald Trump made the country a better place. So everything he did, he had sort of the Midas touch. He would make everything better that he would tackle. You know, what's wrong with the economy? Let's fix that. What's wrong with the Veterans Administration? Let's fix that. What's wrong with the military? Let's fix that. Like everything touched was fixed. It was like boom, 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 fix, fix, fix. Everything Biden touches seems to rot and die. Joe Biden seems to be destroying the country. And people see it. People are seeing that that's happening. And anyone who's in any way associated with Joe Biden, people are going to, that rot is going to spread. You know, they say one rotten apple spoils the bunch. Well, Joe Biden is the biggest apple, and he's right there in the middle, and all the little apples around him are starting to rot around him, or they're going to start to, as Joe Biden is perceived as negative. So I think that this strategy of Joe Biden is going to be the scapegoat for all of our dirt, all the skeletons in our closet, all the dirty laundry, every bad thing that we have, all the garbage, all the trash that we need to put out. We're just going to put it in the disposable presidency of Joe Biden and then, flush him down the toilet, get rid of him, and then bring in somebody who we really want to be president, who can be an effective president. That's not going to happen in 2024, ladies and gentlemen. If we even make it to 2024, there will be a reckoning. In fact, I think there's going to be a reckoning in 2022. I think that we're going to take back the House. I think we may even take back the Senate. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with the Arizona audit. I'm not as enthusiastic as I used to be. You'd think there would be some leaks coming out. You'd think there would be some reports. I have definitely heard from some people that there is some, incredibly convincing evidence that they have found a lot of stuff. But if they found all this stuff, why haven't we heard about it? Why hasn't there been leaks? To me, that doesn't seem realistic. So I'm a little bit hesitant about that. I'm a little bit nervous that we're never going to be able to prove there's any kind of election fraud. And, to me, that's a huge shame. But, okay, let's say worst case scenario, they can't prove anything. And we do have to wait until 2024 until there is another election, until we can get a Republican running again, hopefully in a fair election. Then I think that there will be overwhelming support for Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump will be running in 2024 unless there's some kind of tragedy, in which case it'll almost for sure be DeSantis. But if Donald Trump is able to run in 2024, he will win. Not even a question. He will win in a landslide. There will be no way Biden will even run for president. And with Kamala Harris running, surely she's going to run. I mean, of course, she's vice president. She's going to run. She's going to try to run by saying that everything bad that happened during Biden's administration was his fault and nothing to do with her. That's how she's going to run. Nobody's going to believe it. Nobody's going to think that she was effective. Nobody's going to think that she's strong. She's going to be forever tethered to Joe Biden and his administration. She's going to be seen as a failed vice president. Hey, buddy. Sorry, my cat just jumped up on the desk. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter who runs for the Democrat Party. It doesn't matter if it is Pete Buttigieg. It doesn't matter if it is Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. It doesn't matter who runs. As long as they're a Democrat, as long as they are in some way associated with Joe Biden, the American people are going to reject them. The American people are going to vote for Donald Trump in numbers like we have never seen before. Donald Trump is going to destroy the Democrats in 2024, if, in fact, we have to wait that long. This strategy of blaming everything on Joe Biden is going to massively backfire for the Democrats, and I do think that is what's happened. I do think that they're just following the plan. I think they had a plan to use Joe Biden as a disposable dumpster of any kind of scandal that they might have for the next 4 years, and they just filled that dumpster up in the first 8 months. I mean, it's already filled to the brim. He's already so toxic that all he can do throughout the next 3.5 years, is radiate the poison of that toxic presidency. That's all he's going to be able to do. And everybody around him, everybody connected to him, everybody that's pro-Democrat, who is a Democrat, they're going to be infected with that rot, with that poison, with that toxicity. And it's just going to make it an even easier election for the Republicans to win, especially if that Republican is Donald Trump. Even Democrats are going to be praying by 2024, going to be praying for Donald Trump to win the next presidential election. That's my prediction. Let me know what you guys think about this theory that the Democrats had always planned to use Joe Biden as this disposable president they could dump all their scandals on. Let me know if you guys think that's think that's probably true. there's so much that needs to be reformed in the federal government. But we're going to get into that in the next couple of videos. I'm going to talk about the people who need to be booted out, the rhinos, the Republicans in name only, who are traitors to our party and to the American people, who need to go. I'm going to be making a video about that. I'm also going to be making a video about what former FBI agents think of the current state of the federal government. I'm going to have a couple of FBI agents on, former FBI agents who are true patriots and who are horrified at what's going on in the federal government. We're going to have them on in the next few days. And I'm also going to be putting out a video about social media censorship with Zach Voorhees. You may remember him as the Google whistleblower from a few years back. He's got a new book out. I did an interview with him a couple of days ago, so we're going to be putting that out soon. Hope you guys like it. Hope you guys agree with what I'm saying. And if you don't, let me know in the comments what your theories are, because I'm always willing to learn from what you guys think, because there's thousands of you guys, and some of you guys have better theories than I have, and I like to read through and I like to learn what you guys think, because a lot of you guys are really well informed. I'm really impressed. I've always been impressed with the people who watch my show. You guys are so smart. You guys have such a good perspective on the country, and honestly, making these videos and hearing from you guys has reignited my hope in the country, because there are just so many patriots who are willing to stick their neck out there, talk about what they think is important, and who are so smart and have such a brilliant perspective on the country and on the world. All right, guys, well, that's it from me. I will see you next time. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much. That is not so. All right, guys, good night.
Those who would trade our freedom for the soup kitchen of the welfare state have told us they have a utopian solution of peace without victory. They call their policy accommodation. They say we offer simple answers to complex problems. Well, perhaps there is a simple answer. That we want our national policy based on what we know in our hearts is morally right.